All right, everyone. So we've got about 5 more minutes, and we'll take that time to answer some of the questions. So if all of the speakers could unmute themselves, we can go through the questions one at a time here. So I'll start with, I believe this is for Kasim. Kasim, the question is, for drift trials, what was the rate of methylated seed oil used and how was this decided?
It's a 1 pint per acre and decided based on the label for how it's gonna be the concentration on the label online at the label.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Do growers have adequate insecticide options for rapid armyworm control in California?
Yeah, I can answer that. So currently we have methoxyphenoside, which is Intrepid. It's got a Section 18. It doesn't have a full Section 3 registration, but we're hoping that we get that in a couple of years. And the industry is working on another insecticide, the active ingredient Encouragin. And that is also a good insecticide for armyworm. It controls good and quickly, but that one's still in the pipeline. So we're relying on a Section 18 right now, and we're hoping that we get a full registration next year, or maybe the year after that.
Okay, thank you. One more armyworm question here. Did other growers treat for armyworms other than the growers you were monitoring for?
I think that's what she mentioned. She had.
Oh, was that from? Oh, okay.
I think so. Yeah, Michelle, you mentioned that you had on the couple of fields you have traps. They treated, and I think they're asking if other growers also treated.
Yeah, you know, I can't speak for all of the growers. I can basically only speak for the growers where I've done the trapping this year. I know in previous years, I've spoken with growers, maybe they would treat along the field edges as a way to reduce how much acreage they're treating, if at all. I think the growers in this region have found that even in those years where the graph was showing those high populations or higher populations than what we had this year, that, you know, maybe it's the level of risk that the growers willing to have. Some of them are maybe more likely to spray. Others are less likely to spray if their experience tells them that, you know, the damage that they're viewing or the populations that we're reporting are within their risk tolerance.
Yeah, and I'll make a comment that here in the Sacramento Valley, we didn't have a very heavy armyworm year. It's been low, but there's been some fields that were treated, but not much. I don't know the exact acreage, but I know it hasn't been as much as previous years.
Okay, and then we've got a few questions on weedy rice. They're kind of similar. So can farmers identify weedy rice easily enough to be able to rogue it before it heads? And sort of a similar question for spot spraying. Is weedy rice easily identified, or are there good tools or techniques to recognize it in the field before heading? So I'll just briefly say it looks a lot like watergrass. So we basically have asked folks to wait until after all of their herbicide applications for watergrass are completed, and then you basically have to go out into the field to look specifically at the plants. From afar, it's pretty impossible to tell if they're weedy rice or watergrass. When you get out there, you look for down near the base of the leaf where it connects to the stalk. You look for a little structure called a ligule and an auricle, and if it has a ligule and an auricle, then it's rice. If it doesn't, then it's watergrass. And then also feeling the leaves of the weedy rice are pubescent, so that's another way, but it is a bit difficult to identify. Anyone else want to add anything?
One of the
Okay.
slides that I
Go
showed
ahead.
Whitney at the end of my presentation showed some light greenish areas. And that is usually an indication that you should get out there and at least and check, as Whitney said, check for those structures on the rice or on the plants. But if you see something like that, maybe it's an indication to take a little walk.
Yes. And then we've got a question about solar radiation. So I think, Bruce, probably this is for you. At what stage of development is reduced solar radiation most damaging to yields?
Boy, I would have to guess probably between PI and heading. That's the stage where the plant is growing by far the fastest, is putting on the most biomass. So I would think that would be probably the key stage. I mean, all areas, all times can be affected by it. We have a lot of solar radiation here in California, maybe even excess of what sometimes a plant may need. So a slight dip may not be a huge issue, but yeah, I would guess PI to heading.
Okay, thank you. Well, we won't keep everyone. It's 3 o'clock, but if people would like to stay around, I think the speakers are okay with hanging on for a few moments if there are additional questions, but we'll go ahead and dismiss everyone that needs to go. So thank you all very much for attending. We all appreciate your attention and your questions, and we hope to see you in person next year.
Yeah, and while we wait for, if there are any more questions, I just wanted to add on the poll, you know, I didn't have time to go through the questions, but looks like that everybody got the, yeah, there's my poll. So on question number 1, so what disease does sodium hypochlorite, the bleach, soak target? And that targets Bacony. It has no effect on smut or stem rot that we know of. We're doing some trials with smut, but we don't think it does. And blast, it could have an effect on blast if we increase the concentration, but if we do that, then we start getting a drop in germination. So at the concentration and the amount of time we use the soaks, we don't see an effect on blast. So the answer for that would be only Bacony.
Thanks, Luis. And we've got another question actually in the chat here. So is there any value in using a drone when scouting for armyworm? Anyone, go for it.
I would say, yeah, because you know, when you're scouting for armyworm right now, what you're doing is mostly looking for damage, for defoliation. And later when the rice is heading, you're looking for, you know, the panicle blanking. And so it's easy to see that when it's near the borders, if you're driving around the field, but a drone might be useful to look a little further, look closer. So I think it could have some value.
I think the challenge is it's the small scale defoliation, which is that first sign or even medium scale is pretty challenging to see. But I think if you're able to detect that with a drone, then I think it would be helpful. And we do have the benefit. Most of the time there's at least moderate edge effect with armyworm, so that does help, but there's still checks going out that would be challenging to drive on.
Okay, I don't think we have any more questions. If anyone would like to address any of their poll results, we can do that quickly. Otherwise, we can end this. Anyone else feel like they need to readdress some of the polls?
I think for mine, the traps are for male moths only. Yeah, it's a female produced pheromone and it tracks the males. So that's the one thing there. So that means that when we're monitoring, we are catching the male moths. So we're not catching females, which are what make the worms, but we're still relating those.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks, Ian.
Whitney, yeah, if you put up mine, I forget what the other questions were, so I can go through it quickly. Yeah, that's Ian's. Yeah, here we go. So my second question was, what seedling stage is the most susceptible to shrimp injury. And the trial we've had this year and some other trials have had previous years seem to indicate is when you have the coleoptile and the radicle. And once that seedling has the spike and it's green and that the root is well into the soil, is anchored, the shrimp don't seem to be a problem. And then the third question I had was, what are the effects of severe armyworm defoliation and, shorter plants, delayed heading, and smaller panicles, all of the above. That's what we're seeing.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I'll address.
Oh, we've got,
mine.
oh, go ahead.
I think most people got the answer, but Loyant doesn't have efficacy on Sprangletop, so it was all of the above except. And so Sprangletop was the correct answer. And that second one, best management practices for weedy rice, include all of the following except deep tillage was the correct answer. That would not be a good way to manage for weedy rice.
Okay, and we have one more question in the chat. It says, remind us again how many DPR hours were approved. So we had one DPR hour and 1 hour for the CCA licenses, and that was in the pest management category. Okay, we've still got a few folks here.
One's better than none
True.
this year.
Okay. Well, we'll say goodbye. I think that was mostly the end of the questions, it looks like. So thank you again. Hope to see you next year in person.